to retire with either team. Like, no one wants to hear that. Like, if you're on the San Antonio Spurs, you are a Spur. You don't say stuff like that. Even if you're playing around, like, don't even say stuff like that. Like, I would want to retire with either team. That's weak, man. Come on, you're a Spur. Like, no,
And
don't
like,
do that.
it's like a relationship, man. Like if you're trying to like date somebody, like just tell me you want to date me or tell me you don't. Don't lead me on either way. Just commit one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, I don't know. She was cool too. I mean, I might go back to her. I'm with you right now, but you don't do that. No one does that.
I mean, I don't know. There are people that do that for sure.
Oh my God.
Great, but in 3 years, I want to date this girl again.
I want to go date this other girl for 3, 4, or 5 years, but I'll be coming right back to you.
Y'all wild.
You don't do that. You don't do that.
I know you've been paying me more.
Here's a question that kind of it states kind of on topic of LaMarcus Aldridge. I saw this San Antonio United from Instagram posted a picture, I think it was, of Patty Mills, Kawhi Leonard, and LaMarcus Aldridge, and the question was, who's going to be the next Spur to get their jersey retired? And I say Patty Mills too. I mean, I think if LaMarcus finishes out his career here and like plays another 3-4 years, I think he could get it retired as well. But I think Patty's a shoo-in. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he gets the Bruce Bowen treatment. He's just kind of like the guy that stuck around. I mean, he's done a lot for us. And, Kawhi's the best out of that group. But, I mean, I don't even think you need to factor in the drama stuff. He just wasn't here very long.
Yeah, I think that LaMarcus, man, I mean, he's going to get it up there just on stats alone. Just kind of like what he did in his Spurs uniform. Hate him or love him from the Spurs side, from the fan side, I'm sorry. Really, I don't think it's going to matter when it comes to L.A.
Plus, his jersey number's technically already up there.
That's true.
They can just post Aldridge over Bowen.
No, there'd be a riot if you did that.
Just a little. Hey.
Man, that was a big move. Hey, but let's talk a little bit about the RC Buford live chat that he did with Positive Coaching Alliance, and I believe the girl's name was Casey Miller. She did a pretty good interview with him. It was really informative. I really like what she brought to the table, so she did a great job. Just what were y'all's? I kind of wanted to go digging for anything I could, and he kind of did drop a little bit of nuggets, I think, to the public. He was talking about what the guys are doing right now, kind of what the players are doing, and kind of also what the staff is doing. And I feel like it's cool to see these organizations doing the same thing I think a lot of other people are doing. They're trying to over communicate. I heard him say that a few times. So what do y'all think about that video? We'll start with you, Tyler.
I mean, what he's trying to do with all this social distancing stuff, and he was saying that they have activities that they do online with each other. I can't remember any the specific activities that he said that they were doing, but it's just really cool to see that this organization is still being treated like a family during these times where, you can't stand more than 6 feet within somebody. And if you do out in the public area, you have to have a mask on. So it's really cool to see these guys in this organization still treat this whole epidemic like a family. And
I wonder, it makes me wonder if other teams are kind of doing the same thing, or is it, just the Spurs? I mean, because I know a lot of teams just treat it strictly like a business, and of course Spurs do as well. But like you said, it's more like a family atmosphere. I definitely wonder if other teams are taking those type of steps as well.
Well, it's funny because people were asking in the comments. They were like, "What do you do different from other teams?" And I felt like RC knew a little bit, but he was trying to be professional. And he was like, I can't speak about other teams because I don't know I don't spend time with them and all that. Yeah. He was like, but I'll talk about us. I was like, okay. But one thing I thought was kind of cool, he talked about how they evaluate players. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the first times he's ever talked about it.
Yeah.
And he gave away a lot more than I thought he would. He was talking about how they'll sometimes go all the way back and contact high school teammates and high school coaches and players and people they knew to see how they interacted with teachers and stuff.
Yeah.
Because this whole thing was people don't really change and how they want to pick people that govern themselves a certain way and they don't have rules as a team because they'd rather people be themselves and be moral rather than like conform to something because they have to, which is like pretty cool. Like a lot of people wonder why we don't like draft certain guys and all. And I think it comes down to that sometimes. They want guys that are all around fit the Spurs mold. That's that Spurs way.
I believe they were close to not getting DeJounte because of that.
I can tell you firsthand. I have a story from the guy who scouted DeJounte. Mm-hmm. He said they flew to Cleveland and they scouted him there because obviously he was like having LeBron mentor him. He said the first time they watched him work out for them, they fell in love with him like instantly. And they went back and they were like, we want this guy, but they didn't think they were going to be able to get him. So apparently all draft night, they were sitting there like about to pull the trigger on some trades to trade up to get him. And they held off and he was there at 29. And he said like they got like 8 or 9 calls for that pick right away because everybody was trying to get him. And they didn't even answer the phone. They just called in the pick right away.
Well, yeah, that's why he that's part of why he kind of has so much loyalty to the Spurs because he fell so far behind, and he's just kind of like, and he just keeps seeing it in some of his social media posts. It's like the Spurs took a chance on me, when no one else 28 other teams saw me and didn't want me, and this is the team that wanted me, and I think that played a big factor in why he signed that contract and why, at least as far as he says, he wants to be a Spur for life. I think that played a big factor in that.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, I'm not alone because I posted like the link to our thing, and people are like, "Wait, DeJounte's involved in off-court drama?" So I got y'all.
Yeah, I think the average fan doesn't know about all that stuff, but I chalk that stuff up to
average fan.
Hey. Yeah, my bad. I
just had to.
But I think I chalk that stuff up to being young. You know what I mean, and being a kid. I think everyone goes through that. If you're a Spurs type player, or if you're not, unless you're Kawhi Leonard. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I mean, it shows every time he speaks to the media. He always talks about being bigger than basketball. He wants to impact the community around him. He wants to be like that type of leader, not just on the court but off the court. And he's been saying that since day one. So the Spurs have honed in on this process, and he kind of RC said it too. He was kind of like, shame on us if we haven't figured out like what's working, and what's not working. And he just kind of had a lot to say about that. Like you said, Harrison, it was very insightful. What else did y'all like about that little that chat?
Mostly because they talked about how they 2013-2014 finals. I know we were talking about it a little bit before we went on live, but how all we see nowadays on like NBA.com, NBA TV, the replays, all they do is the 2013 Game 6 and 7 when RC was like, we arguably played our best basketball in franchise history in 2014, and yet there's nothing.
Yeah, he talks a lot about the intimacy after the Ray Allen shot and the dinner and how that was one of the hardest things that they've had to bounce back from as an organization since they've been together. I mean, we all felt that. It wasn't just you guys. We can tell it wasn't just you guys, man. Like it was all Spurs Nation was feeling that with you, and it made it so much sweeter moving forward. He also talked a little bit about the Spurs way, and he kind of, as soon as that question got brought up, he started talking about Tim Duncan. I mean, Maddie, you can talk a little bit about this, but like the Spurs way is Tim Duncan. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I mean, in any organization in the NBA, it starts at the top. And Popovich has said it himself 100 times. It started with Tim Duncan, but obviously it's pretty humble. You can obviously say it was definitely him and Pop. And when you have a franchise player, and we've talked about this before, when people talk about all-time greats, when you put Tim Duncan up there and look at like the other, he's pretty much a consensus top 10, and you look at the other guys up there with him, and all of them at least have somewhat of an ego, and it's just amazing to have a player of his caliber, of his talent, of his ability, not let that get in the way of the team's success. And we saw that just for the duration of his entire career, through different eras, just his ability just to adapt and unselfishly sacrifice for the team. I mean, when you see that from a guy like that, a guy like a top 5, top 10 player of all time, I mean, if you're Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, you're not going to, be a problem either. I mean, like, I'm not saying Tony Parker would have, but I could have saw a guy like Tony Parker kind of have a little bit of an ego problem if a guy like Tim Duncan's not, the main guy. I'm not saying he would have. I'm just saying, like, out of all the people, all the roster turnover, there's definitely some guys in there that probably would have been a problem on the team in the locker room had it not been for, Tim Duncan being that guy, that kind of leader that kept everyone in place,
Yeah.
When like he was talking about you said it was something like in 19 years, like the thing that stuck out to him was that Tim had never been late to a single team meeting.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do this to set an example. It was just because Tim didn't want to be late. And that's like what they look for in players, guys that do it because they want to do it. But also, a big takeaway. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Destin.
No, I was just saying that's how all the greats are. Like they all do that. It seems like with Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Kobe, they all kind of have a certain aura about them and way that they do things systematically. It's like kind of the same of what they do to be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My big takeaway is Pop's trying to bring the coffee gang back. Like every morning he's having coffee. And another thing, RC kind of, I don't know if let slip is the word, but he said he's been like talking over coffee about like addressing problems. And he let that slip. And then it was like to praise Pop, talking about like, oh, he doesn't care where the solution comes from for the problem as long as and stuff. But I was like, he's using these meetings to talk to the team, kind of get them to hash things out. So I think that's a good thing, especially for next year.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, some of the main problems that we talked about, the rotations and, the minutes going to the veterans, like how much do you guys, I'll ask Tyler here, do you think some of those problems are going to be solved next year, or do you think we're going to kind of see more of the same?
Honestly, it all depends on what happens in the offseason whenever that happens. We don't know what's going to happen. So, but it all depends on things like we've talked about. Does DeMar opt in? Does DeMar opt out? Do we trade LA on draft night? What do we do in free agency? Who do we draft? Where do we fall in the draft? I think more so at the end of the offseason, whenever that is, that's when we'll start seeing more and more answers about what happens with this team moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. I just hope that, regardless, I just, obviously, I want to see the team succeed, and I want to see the team, have a plan for the future. So, that's why, even last year, I know some fans weren't very happy, even though we, went 48-34 and had a all-around, pretty solid year considering the circumstances of losing our best player in Kawhi. But, a lot of fans kind of wanted to see more of Lonnie Walker. They wanted to see more of, Derek White after he came back from that heel injury. And, to me, even this year, like, even at the start of the year, I wasn't really, on, Pop or anybody like talking about the rotations or the veterans getting minutes. Like, I just want to see this team, win and succeed. Like, that's how we've always kind of done is, like, the veterans lead the way and the young guys kind of, fill in their place as they go. But, I was just kind of like, I just want to see the team win and succeed. If that's the veterans are the best, if the veterans are going to put us in that best position going forward, like, then, let them have it. But we were just failing time and time again. And it was just so blatantly obvious what the problem was. And it just seemed like such an easy fix. Like, you got to stop giving 15 minutes to Marco Bellinelli, stop giving 25 minutes to Bryn Forbes, stop giving 30 minutes to Rudy Gay. And it's not necessarily saying, you play Keldon, Lonnie, Derek, and DeJounte all together, and we're just going to start, going undefeated in there and 10-game win streaks here and there. But you can't do any worse, really, than what we were. It's just hard to imagine that we would have been any worse off,
Mm-hmm. I got a question for you guys, because I was talking to somebody about this, and it was after watching The Last Dance, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm. It was really good.
Yeah, just those 2 episodes. Like, I'm so hyped for the rest of it. But they said that they weren't sure if Popovich would have been able to coach the Chicago Bulls to championships. And like initially, I'm like, you know what, that's dumb. Of course he would, you know, and I have my own reason for thinking he would, but then their reason for him not being able to was, well, it's so many egos and he never really had to experience big egos, and when he has, you know, he got rid of them. Yeah. So do you think that Pop would have been able to coach that Bulls team?
That's a great question. I think you put it in pretty good context of why you would doubt the question, right? And say maybe not so much. I think that's because you're absolutely right. I mean, one, I think we're unique. You know, or that him and Tim Duncan, that relationship is unique. That's something that's a match made in heaven. You know, and we had all the success that we had because we didn't have those.
I'm gonna say, I think he probably could. I think it'd be an entirely different way. I think a lot of like our team stuff stems from Tim being the way he is and kind of making that blueprint. But one thing I say about Pop is he's adaptable. And I think if he, been given a different team, that he could have made something work. Would they have won as much? I don't know. No one can really say.
When it comes to basketball, I mean, all of us would agree, right? I mean, there's no doubt that he could do it. It's not that he could do it when it comes to X's and O's and basketball and strategy. He has the goal. He has the IQ for it. He can coach any team, absolutely. But could he? I mean, let's give credit to Phil Jackson here, man. Phil Jackson is not a great X and O's guy, kind of like the way Pop is. He's not. They don't do the same things well. But Phil Jackson is the best almost ever to do it at managing personalities and players and kind of getting the craziness, allowing the craziness to be there. Because I think the Spurs do that too, but we prevent the craziness from getting there beforehand, I feel like. So, that's where all this like player the character development, all that stuff is huge here. But Phil Jackson, man, I mean, we're seeing it. Like, Jesus Christ, the issues that he had to deal with there, not just from the players, but from his GM. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole thing with Scotty's contract. Oh, my God. Like, to be able to manage all those issues and still put out a championship product is unbelievable.
It's just amazing because we had to see Phil Jackson do it with, like the Bulls' egos, and then a couple of years later, he had to deal with it with the Shaq and Kobe egos. So props to Phil Jackson for having to deal with all those egos.
And again, that goes back to my point earlier about Tim Duncan and not having the ego problem. Like, obviously, we praise our front office, we praise Pop and everything, for all the work they've done over the years. But it all starts to me with Tim Duncan. Having a player of his caliber not have an ego, not be a problem in the locker room, and actually be like the solution to everything. I mean, that is just paramount to the success of an organization. And the fact that he was able to be that consistent rock for us for so long. I mean, I know even when his numbers were kind of falling and, people sometimes will criticize his production in his latter years, like it still can't be understated how important that is, because we had to rely on other guys, younger guys. Sometimes we brought in free agents, LaMarcus Aldridge, David West, David Lee. Well, David Lee was actually 2017 after he retired, but regardless, still my point stands that, I mean, it's just so important to have, your best players not only be your leaders, but be someone that, the guys look forward to playing with. I mean, there was a great quote from Steve Kerr when he said, because he played with Michael Jordan and Tim Duncan, he was like, at times it felt like we were playing with Jordan, and with Tim Duncan, it was always playing with him. Just the huge difference between the two.
Yeah, it's that Jordan Kobe similarity is that in their own practice they're the alpha, and they make everyone rise to their level by in a different way. Like Timmy kind of like shepherds them, like, come on, my young, my teammates, follow me to greatness, and Jordan and Kobe had that mentality of like if you don't belong on this court, get the hell out of here. And they're gonna tell you in the face. And if you're not ding me up, then I don't even want you guarding me, coach. Get him off me. Get someone else on me that can guard. They would do stuff like that with the teammates. And there were two separate entities, Coach Pop and Timmy, and Phil Jackson and Jordan and Kobe. But both, I feel like, just as equal and just as powerful forces, man. I mean, match made in heaven for both sides.
I think part of Tim Duncan doing that, coming in and being the more guy where it's like, you play with me, is kind of maybe because he came into a situation that was humbling to begin with. I mean, he's coming under David Robinson, who's already established as a Hall of Famer at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that could have been it as well, because he came in as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
My argument for thinking that Popovich would be able, because another thing they said was, well, Pop, he sits too many players, and Michael Jordan wouldn't have stood for that. I was like, first off, Michael Jordan is the greatest, in my opinion, greatest player of all time, period. And I have a hard time believing Popovich, who gave the keys to Kawhi Leonard and let Kawhi Leonard, at one point, it looked like just the Kawhi Leonard team, where just go to Kawhi, get out the way at one point. I have a hard time believing that he wouldn't have done that for Michael Jordan. He would have saw the greatness there. So I know a lot of people jump to the 2013 finals when he sat down Tim Duncan. Yeah, that was pretty bad. I think he was overcoaching at that point. But at the same time, Tim Duncan was still getting significant minutes. And yeah, it's Michael Jordan. Like he would have played Michael Jordan. I don't.
Duncan was 13 All NBA in 2013.
Yeah. Wait, and one question I was going to say, one thing I look at last night, like we're talking about egos and Pop, but the other thing I think would make a difference is just like the system we have. Like we're talking RC. It seemed like a lot of the problems they had in this last season, at least so far that we can discern, come from their GM. They said their freaking GM told Phil Jackson he didn't care if he won every game the next season. He was done. Like, can you imagine if RC told Pop that? Like, after winning 5 championships, because it's a similar situation doing that. But I'm wondering too, like, yeah, there's egos and all that, but we'll have to see as this thing goes on. But like, how much of all that stuff comes from a mismanaged front office and all that? And one thing Pop's been good at, it takes me back to 2014 when Pop's out there and Tony's talking to him and kind of, getting him to back off. And then Tony goes and draws up a play. And then, he's giving the clipboard to Manu and letting him coach. So I honestly think he'd be willing to step back and let, Jordan, Pippen do their thing. And that was what they're talking about in there. One thing is like, we don't like somebody who doesn't play with us, making all the decisions without any of our input. And like, I think that's one thing we do well as an organization is
he had to do that with Manu. Remember, he finally, after Manu was a rookie and, in the first couple of years, he was trying to, coach him so hard and try to get him to, buy into his system and everything. And he didn't really, it took him a while to finally understand that, Manu's just the type of guy, you just kind of have to let him go and do his own thing. Manu's a guy you're going to win with, and Manu's a guy you're going to lose with. But at the end of the day, he's going to hit you, get you that big bucket. He's going to, get you that big win and, help you win a championship. And I absolutely agree. I mean, I think Pop is more adaptable than I think people think. Obviously, this season probably doesn't really help my case. But, he's actually a very humble coach, in my opinion. I mean, he doesn't have a huge ego when it comes to, who's making the decision making. I mean, he always credits Chip. How do you say his last name? Chip
England.
Yeah.
England, yeah. Always credits him, when he's talking about, player development and their jump shooting and all that. So, I agree 100%.
Dude, think about how much basketball has changed since 99 to 2014 and being able to win in 3 different decades. That's not easy. And if you look at the team early on in 99 and you look at the team in 2014, like the Spurs were doing what Warriors were doing before the Warriors, where they saw the Warriors and shooting all these threes. We're the ones who kind of started that, post 2010s. So yeah, man, he would have adapted. And it's like I said, it's Michael Jordan. It's not like he would have, because I know a lot of people say, well, he's too authoritative. It's like, man, it's Michael Jordan.
To the point, I'll offer this one. It's probably gonna be controversial counter argument about like that. I think Pop was a little bit more adaptable than we think this year, because we're talking about like team ball, but we've never seen really the Spurs go out, have 2 high-paid free agents and try to run their entire team through 2 guys. And it's now a star power league, and I think that's Pop trying to get with the trend. Obviously, he's forced to get with that trend with the Kawhi situation. I think he would have rather had Kawhi in LA, but I think it's different than what we're doing. And clearly it didn't work. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of changes, because we started seeing a lot of changes towards the ends of the season with the lineup, getting more guys in there and stuff like that. So I think he's still adaptable, just not quite in the way people are expecting or would like to see right now. But
not as quick as people would want to see.
Well, I don't even know if it's just quick. I think it's just he sees different things. And, I mean, I can throw out what I think needs to be done on the team, but what it comes down to is he, like we talked with RC, he knows these guys inside and out. I mean, some of these rookies, he's gone and contacted high school coaches and knows who they are as a person, how they play, who they match best with. But maybe there's something in a rotation that he doesn't throw it out there because in practice it's just garbage and we don't see it.
Yeah.
So I'll offer that counterpoint. I'm not saying it's fact on or whatever like that, but that's just one possible.
Well, when it comes to being adaptable, I mean, 2 years ago, the first year that we had DeMar DeRozan, he took the Spurs had the second most isolation plays in the league behind the Rockets and James Harden in the league. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, if you were to look from our past 20 years, that's nothing like what we've done. So I mean, like you said, Harrison, it's a superstars league, and we got to cater to these guys. And right now, the situation that we're in now with these two guys, that's what we have to do until the future happens and whatever changes. But that's the world that we live in.
Yeah, no, I think if you're going to argue one area, I don't know if that's even a Pop thing or front office thing, but one area where he might or the organization might lack a little adaptability, but it's a very objective viewpoint of mine, just that it comes to like the rookies, and it's the use of the G League, in the Austin Spurs. And I've been quoted saying that Luka, I think, is definitely kind of more of a long-term project, and I didn't really have a problem with him in Austin. I think he's very organic. I think he has a long way to go towards player development, but I think his ceiling's high. He's, as you talked about, Rob, in your what do you call him? I can't think of it. And Luka's a very high IQ player, like you talked about, and I think his ceiling is very high. But I think, a guy like Keldon Johnson, I think a guy like Lonnie Walker last year, I just think these guys would benefit more from playing with the team right away. I think they're more mature playing, in like a conference like SEC at Kentucky with Keldon Johnson. I think even Quindary Weatherspoon, he's played 4 years of college basketball. He's naturally going to be more mature. And I think even, for the younger guys that aren't as mature, I think that would force them to grow up really fast. I'm not saying I don't want the G League or I don't want the Austin Spurs. Like,
it's just there's some more people who are more NBA ready than others.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And, it's the Keldon Luka thing I just talked about. Luka, put him in the G League, let him develop, let him learn from the coaches, learn our system, kind of build into his body, build some muscle. But Keldon Johnson, you can't tell me Keldon couldn't have been a key asset on this team this year. You can't tell me he wouldn't have helped this team on the defensive end at least a little bit. I'm not saying he would have led us to the promised land, but I watched this team play a lot of games, and I watched this team struggle so much on defense. And I think we have a dog. I think we got a dog in Keldon personally, and I'm very excited to see what his potential is. But that's going to be my one kind of knock on the adaptability of the front office or Pop, is that maybe they're trying to use the G League too much, and I think they should kind of put more trust in the team and the veterans to kind of take on the young guys and kind of let them grow up themselves. But I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think we'll probably see it more coming because, we were kind of the first to really use the G League. It was like us and the Houston Rockets because, you look at a couple of guys dominating. Clint Capella, Robert Covington. Well, the one team they had with the Vipers was Troy Daniels, Isaiah Cannon, and Robert Covington on the same team for Houston. And, they all turned into NBA starters and role players.
Harrison
Capella was a starter, and now a max player. And we were sending Corey Joseph and all those guys down there. So those are the two teams that really kind of pioneered the G League. And I think maybe it's just one of those things that we're going to see less of it now that we're starting to get further up there. But I was kind of shocked with Lonnie too, just because I felt like the only reason he dropped out of the lottery is because people were worried about his ankle injury. Because he was projected top 7 pick at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But who knows, man? Who knows?
Hey, you forgot to say the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. Harrison, come on, man.
I'll rep for Hidalgo.
Harrison, aren't you from that area? You should know that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now, fellas. If y'all didn't know that.
Where is that in compared to San Antonio? I'm from Wisconsin. For everyone who doesn't know, but
it's like
a couple hours.
It's like 4 hours south.
4 hours south, baby. Tip of Texas.
I didn't even know you could go 4 hours south of San Antonio. I thought San Antonio's pretty south itself.
Dude, you can go like 4 hours in every direction from San Antonio and
still be in Texas.
Still be in Texas.
I could drive. I'm like on the East Coast. I'm like 20 minutes from Lake Michigan in Wisconsin, and I could drive to the opposite side of the state in like less than 2.5 hours. Texas is so freaking huge. It's nuts.
Yeah.
See, I'm in San Antonio, and it takes me 40 minutes to drive from one side of the city to the other. I'm just like, it's not worth it.
I've only really been in downtown San Antonio and the AT&T Center, obviously, but that area is kind of it. I kind of just go to the AT&T Center and get right out of there. I don't really explore that part of town.
Oh, hey, speaking of that, did you see the mayor's live chat with Lonnie Walker?
Oh, yeah.
I saw a little of it.
That was so good because apparently Lonnie said that when he got drafted, Pop asked him, "Have you ever seen the Riverwalk?" And Lonnie said, "No." And Pop said, "Good, because you're not seeing it until you win a championship."
I laughed at that. That was funny. That was
awesome.
real funny.
That's awesome.
And people were like, "Lonnie, start using that as leverage, man. Tell him to play you so you can see the Riverwalk."
Yeah. That makes me brings up a question for me. Destin, I'll ask you first. Now this is a really tough one, and none of us can really predict the future like this far in advance. But how long do you think it could take before we kind of get the Spurs back to a level where, and I'm not saying they have to win a championship, but where they can kind of get back to, being in that conversation? Because for so long we were always considered a contender. And, I'm not saying we're ever going to be the same. We're never going to get a guy like Tim Duncan again, and that's okay. I still think we can get back to that level, if we keep adapting and we keep trending the way we are. But, do you think with the young guys we have that they can progress enough? Do you think, every team kind of has a combination of free agency, draft, and trade? I mean, you look at the last few champions of the Raptors and Warriors, they have obviously homegrown talent, but they also made some trades, free agency signings, i.e. Kevin Durant. So back to my question, how long do you guys think it could be before we kind of get back to that level? And, do you think we will get back to that level maybe?
I mean, I look at the NBA right now, and I'm not, and I think this is probably part of the reason why all of us thought that we would be, a top seed, is because it is so wide open, and the NBA hasn't really scared me this season as far as any team that I just thought going into the season that the Spurs would just get demolished by, or we couldn't beat. So I would say probably, if I had to put a time stamp on it, probably 3 years. And when I think about that, I think of like where every other team will be at that point. Lakers, LeBron will probably be retired. I don't know what's going to go on with the Lakers. So they might not be a thing. Clippers, I don't know. They may still be in contention. I think the Nuggets will still be really good. But for the most part, I think it'll still be pretty wide open as long as we don't have, all these players trying to make super teams. Because that's really the only thing as far as when we were good all these years that really held us back and a lot of other teams back was, because when you think about it, the only team that's been out of the West since 2014 was the Warriors, and they just made a super team. So, for the most part, I'm not really afraid of any team going forward, and how progressive we are. I would say 3 years, but it is tough. It's a tough call because I'm still having in my mind Popovich team, but at that point we don't even know if we'll have Pop. So
right.
Yeah, it's tough, but if I had to put money on it, I would say 3 years.
Hey, but we got Becky Hammond though.
It's true.
Becky and Timmy.
Awesome.
And then once
I'd say about 2 to 3. If we keep drafting the way we do, and I'm just like looking because 2 to 3 years, DeJounte would be like a 6-7 year vet. Derek White's could be about a 5-year vet. You have Keldon and Luka 3 to 4 years, and then some new draft picks, maybe a couple free agent signings, just bolster it. Assuming we re-signed Jakob, he'll be a journeyman at that time and all that. So I think we'll have a mature, really talented team. I can't say we'll guaranteed to win a title, but I think we at
Right.
least make the playoffs consistently and get up there.
What do you think, Tyler?
I'd say 2 to 3 years, but like we've been saying, it all depends on like how fast these young guys progress and reach their potential and how long they're within that window. But I mean, like losing Pop as a coach in the future probably wouldn't hurt that much because you have, like you said, Becky Hammond will probably have Will Hardy on the staff still. Tim Duncan might still be an assistant coach, and then you never know. Manu might come back and coach, even though, because we've all heard Manu wants to coach. It's just he didn't want to do it the year after he retired.
Right. Yeah.
But,
no. Yeah. I think it's going to take some kind of combination, like I said, of homegrown talent, you know, to the draft and free agency and trade. I mean, you look at the last since 2011, maybe, like every team that's won. I mean, the Warriors, obviously, you know, they had the homegrown talent to build around in Draymond, Steph, and Clay, but their 2 final MVPs of their 3 championships were free agents, you know, and Kevin Durant and Andre Iguodala. They had a lot of free agencies, additions to the team that really kind of helped them sustain that level of success. We've got the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, they traded for Kawhi and Danny Green. They traded for Marc Gasol. I believe they traded for Serge Ibaka, if I'm not mistaken, from the Magic. And, you know, really, and then you can go back even further, the Miami Heat, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, the 2011 Mavs. I'm pretty sure they had a lot of free agency signings. They had a lot of those veterans.
Yeah.
And but they were built around Dirk. Dirk was a homegrown talent. You know, Miami had Dwayne Wade, homegrown talent. So my point is, you kind of have to have a little bit of mix between, you know, free agency, draft, and trade. And as long as you kind of have those rock pieces to build around, like those homegrown talent guys, like we had, you know, for so long, and Tim, Tony, and Manu, you know, it makes that stuff a lot easier because as a small market, like as we all know, we're not going to get those big name free agency in free agency. So you kind of get those, you know, mid-level guys like you look at the Bucks right now who signed Brooke and Robin Lopez. I think Eric Bledsoe. I'm not sure if he was traded or if they bought or if they got him by all market. He was traded, yeah. But regardless, Kyle Korver, the Lopez brothers, are kind of getting these, you know, mid-level free agency guys, veterans that, you know, other that want to go win a ring in Milwaukee. Otherwise, they wouldn't go there, you know. And that's what we saw in 2016 when David West came, in 2017 when David Lee came. You know, they're obviously past their prime, but they were still huge pieces. So I really hope that we kind of see the Spurs adapt to that more and kind of, you know, explore the free agency market a little bit and, you know, maybe explore the trades. But as long as we kind of continue to build off that homegrown talent, like I said, hopefully, you know, we can get DeJounte, Derek, Keldon, or, you know, somewhat of a big 3 to kind of, you know, give us that rock to build around in the future.
I mean, all eyes on that 2021 free agency class if Giannis doesn't sign an extension.
Guys, we're not fighting Giannis. Rip off the
I think there's a couple other guys in that free agency class that we have a shot at, but none of them are going to be like big guys, but I think they're just like solid vets to get on the team.
Who are you thinking of?
Yeah, like, you know what? I don't think we're going to – I kind of want to go back to the original question and but also talk about free agency. I think, like, you hit it on the head with, like, Andre Iguodala. Like, free agency is going to be huge when we're, like, right there, and we just need, like, these veteran role players that we still have to pay. So a lot of that has to come down to, like, managing money. You know what I mean? Like, being smart with our cap and whatnot. And to, like, kind of go back to the question of, like, when are they going to be ready? I feel like they're going to be ready whenever DeJounte, Derek White, and Lonnie Walker are ready to lead them there. You know, I feel like that can be as early as next season. That can be as late as 2 or 3 seasons, like you guys are saying. And I kind of feel like that's true with DeMar and LaMarcus Aldridge there or not. You know, I kind of feel like DeMar and LaMarcus, to say they stick around long term or long term in this year's NBA is, you know what, 3 or 4 years. Let's say they're still around for that time frame that we're talking about, where these young guys, we expect these young guys to get ready. I think DeJounte has plenty of experience. Derek White has the Denver experience. Bryn has the experience. Lonnie Walker is the one that I feel like is ready to just like feast. You know, he wants to feast on experience. He wants to soak it all up. And I think he's not going to have a problem with it. I mean, like you said, later on in the season, he was getting significant run. I've been diving through film for the past few days, trying to find minutes of DeJounte and Derek playing together at the same time. If y'all want to know how hard that is, I think DeJounte and Bryn played together for a total of like 1,020 minutes this season in 50 some games. You want to know how many DeJounte and Derek played together?
It was like 12, wasn't it?
No, like 102, something like that. 102. Yeah, a little bit more than 12. Well, that's according to NBAstats.com that they played together this season. I think there was a little sprinkle of it early on, if I'm not mistaken, when we played like Detroit. There was a few games early on in the season where they may have gave him a few extra minutes, but it definitely stopped, right? And it definitely stopped, and then it picked back up in January, in early January, pre All-Star break, and then it kind of continued to build after that. Is kind of what I'm finding out here, but. It's really up to those three guys. I want to throw Bryn Forbes in that mix, but he's not going to be the guy that's going to get us there. It's going to be those other three. And if DeMarcus if LaMarcus and DeMar are there or not, I feel is irrelevant to that point. If that makes any sense.
Like almost those two, LaMarcus and DeMar, will have to take like a back seat to the young talent.
And, a co-seat at least. A co-seat. It can't just be those two. Yeah, taking all the shots. It's just not going to work.
But like. Even like if the young guy, like say in 2 years, let's say LaMarcus and DeMar are still here, and the young guys and Lonnie, Derek, and DeJounte, they're struggling in that game. You always have that one guy who was an all-star in the league to fall back on.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a catch-22. A lot of us think we're going to be better without LaMarcus Aldridge. Guys, we're not gonna be better without LaMarcus Aldridge. At least while he's on our roster. Yeah, like not immediately, but if he's on our roster and like when he got hurt, oh yes, we're gonna start doing this. We're gonna play better. We're gonna be better when he's out. It's like no, guys. Like he's an all-star caliber player. He is a monster, and you're better with a monster on your team than without him. It's up to the coaching staff and everyone else to figure out the rest. But Destin, you were gonna say something?
Yeah. Do you think that, because I know that we're all hyped, and it makes me nervous, and I don't really want to think about it, but I'm a huge Derek White fan. Like, he's my favorite player on the team by far.
White out, baby.
Yeah, white out. And, by the way, San Antonio Spurs Instagram, they keep stealing all my ideas. Real talk, they did it twice. They did
someone commented on there and said, y'all stole this.
Yeah, they did it twice. They did it twice to me. They did it the first time with the Family Matters theme song with the Spurs players. I did that. All right, I did that plenty of times. They stole that, then they did it with the whiteout. But
their social media managers say,
"Yeah, right."
They're full of it, dude.
Yeah.
But anyway, So one thing that makes me nervous is like, okay, Derek White, great. DeJounte Murray, really good. Lonnie Walker, we know that he's going to be great. But do you guys think that we need a lottery pick to win a championship? Because when I think of every team that won a championship, has there really been one that didn't have a team or a player that came out the lottery?
Oh, I don't know about that question, but I want to say this. I feel like the answer is yes, 5 years and beyond from now. You know what I mean? I feel like if we're not going to get a high lottery pick talent this year or next year, or let's say when we do rebuild, we don't do so well and we end up with a lottery pick. I don't know. I don't even want to think about that. But because unless Lonnie Walker can be that alpha type guy, I don't know.
See, I think yes. I'm one of those people. I'm very selective with when you get that lottery pick, and especially on like Maddie's blog, I've been advocating this year to trade down. Because I'm just thinking we're sitting at 13 and 11. There's not a lot of guys. The guys I'm high on, they're going to be long gone. If you can trade up, great. I don't think we're going to be able to trade up. And I think you can get guys who are just as talented in the low first round of this draft as the guys in the upper first round. But if you can get another pick next year that could translate into a lottery pick, we might have 2 lottery picks. And next year is going to be a pretty good draft. And I think, I don't necessarily think, oh my God, they have to be the cornerstone pick. But I think in a strong draft, it'd be nice to have 1 or 2 of those guys who are just, ultra talented to build around. And you don't have to go through this, Salmonage project in the G League. Let's put these guys down there. Let's give them 3 years. It'd be nice to have a guy who could come in, from the get and just 20
yeah,
and 10.
I just don't want. I don't want to keep seeing these, like you said. I don't mind Luka, being a project, like I said, but I don't want to keep seeing these guys get sent down immediately to the G League, and where they play there for 2.5 years, get 5 minutes a game in that last half season, and then they start to get in the rotation. I want to see these guys in now. I feel like 5 years from now we're going to be talking about Drew Eubanks G League highlights. Still, it just
Tyler will appreciate this. It's like the Chicago Cubs, man. For years it was like, oh, we're rebuilding, man. We got the farm system going. It was like, okay, we waited how long? When are we going to be rebuilt?
Well, let me tell you when that's going to be, Tyler. That's going to be when players like Patty Mills, Rudy Gay, Marco Bellinelli, a lot of those guys are not on the roster. You know what I mean? A lot of that veteran heavy stuff. So that moment when we stop shipping our players down for a full season, because like you said, I don't mind it, and the way DJ did it was fine. Corey Joseph, all those guys, the up and down is what I like. I like to see them in a Spurs uniform every 3 or 4 games, not the whole season away. And this year, I was so adamant about them not going down there this year, and I felt like it kind of gave me a little Austin Spur hater, which is a vibe, which is completely off. But I was just very confident in this year's group that Keldon and Luka can develop and learn and compete at this level early on. But early on, it was everybody was just yeah, well, come on. I mean, the Spurs are going to throw them in the G League all year. We're not going to see them at all. And I'm here firing up red no, they can learn with the Spurs in a Spurs uniform. They're competitive enough. At least those are top 2 first-round picks. And it's frustrating, Maddie. I don't know when we're going to stop seeing it. I think it's going to be once we make that shift away from these veteran guys.
And with Corey Joseph, the big thing was we were still winning 50, 55, 57,
exactly.
60 games.
That's my point.
When he was down there, he asked to go to the G League because he wasn't playing because we were so good.
Yeah.
It's I was half with you, Rob. I didn't mind sending Samanich down there for a whole year because I feel like, at least in my perspective, I think the G League's a good spot to develop bigs. It's really hard for bigs to develop just throwing them out there in the league. I mean, look at how hard Marvin Bagley struggled. He was a number 2 overall pick. Wendell Carter struggled in Chicago. Markkanen struggled at first. And I think it's good to let him get his body ready, catch his breath. But Johnson, we've seen now he's talented enough to go out there, and it's a guards league. I mean, I think if you have his athleticism and defensive capabilities, the offense comes. I mean, you can get out there and learn just by playing defense and jumping high and running fast. That was my thing. I was we could use him and he could learn a lot. We don't need him to score 25 a night. We just need him to come in and get some minutes.
I mean, it was almost the same thing as when we traded to draft Kawhi Leonard. He was an immediate starter from day one, and he didn't have that jump shot when he first came up. He just came in, played defense. He did 5 to 10 points a game.
Yeah.
I honestly wonder sometimes if that's a sign about the veterans we have. Does the front office not trust DeMar and LaMarcus with kind of bringing those guys along so much as they did with Tim, Manu, and Tony? Because like you said, they threw Kawhi out there right away. And I mean, even, Danny Green, when we got him, he had played very little with Cleveland. Been overseas a little, been in the G League a little. And we brought him in, started him, cut him, brought him back, and started him.
Yeah.
And we threw him in the fire too.
Harrison, I want to tell this little story to Spurs Nation because I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm correct, but I think you would know because you're more familiar with Danny Green than I. But to your point, Tyler, when you're bringing up Kawhi Leonard and we're talking about Keldon Johnson, it was the fact that they were defensively ready from the get-go. I think Keldon Johnson was defensively ready this season, but they wanted the development to happen maybe quicker, so they sent him down there or whatever. But with Danny Green, like you said, we brought him back. I remember the game, and I may be wrong, but it was against the Dallas Mavericks. Manu was hurt, someone else was hurt, and they threw Danny Green in there to guard Monte Ellis. So he came off the bench. It was when Monte Ellis was with the Mavericks, and he shut Monte Ellis down. And from then on, it was Danny Green's spot. So it's got to happen on the defensive side if it's ever going to happen for any of these guys. And I think that Luka's not that guy defensively. I just feel like when it comes to, I understand, yes, he needs to grow, develop, and get bigger, and I just feel like his high Q level was at a point where those aspects of the game didn't matter as much. I felt like he would have been nervous. He would have been terrible probably in the beginning. But I think I have enough confidence in his IQ of the game to maybe bounce back, and I have confidence that he can maybe endure and then produce a little bit quicker than most players.
Yeah,
Destin,
let me ask you a question, because I know you're big on Lonnie, right?
Yeah, Lonnie Walker, yeah.
Yeah. So, and we kind of touched on this last time, whether it should be a 3 or a 2. Do you think, what would you think about him getting more run in the backcourt next year? And do you think, Rob kind of talked about, you want him to be that alpha? Do you think he could be like an alpha? What do you kind of see as his ceiling? So I know you're big on it, so I want your opinion on that.
Now, when you say alpha, do you mean personality wise, or you mean?
I mean, on the court, we saw in that Houston game where he had that Manu. That was a Manu type game where he just said, screw all of you. I'm taking the ball and I'm taking over this game, and that's just what we saw Manu do so many times. And I think we can see him more. I'm not saying I expect 28 points a game against everybody, but I just think that if gets more confidence and he's given more of a role, that we can kind of see more of that alpha dog in him. But I wanted to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, the alpha is definitely there. I think the only thing that holds it, and this is not a knock on Pop, but the only thing that holds it back is I think sometimes he's a little afraid of Pop. Sometimes you can clearly see when Pop is like, dude, just do your thing, and he's out there, kind of hesitant to just go straight in.
Pop will pull him for not doing that.
Yeah, he gets onto him for that because Popovich knows, and I think most of us probably agree that he's the most talented on the team. He is the one that is going to be nasty. Where I was saying, do we need a lottery pick? I think he could be the one, Harrison said, he was supposed to be top 7. He could be that guy that should have been a lottery pick, and he goes out there and just kills it. But as far as is he going to be an alpha dog? Yeah, he's definitely going to be the alpha dog. I know DeJounte Murray has trying to take on more of a leadership role verbally. Derek White, takes on a leadership role as far as controlling the offense. But Lonnie Walker has the whole package. He can jump high. He can dunk on you. He can shoot threes. He can shoot mid ranges. He can pass the ball. He can facilitate. He has everything, and he has the mentality where you hear him talk, and you could have sworn he was 10 years older than how old he actually is. So, I mean, other than his taste in music, you can't really tell that he. So,
but like you were saying, I'll go back to something that was trending on Twitter, Spurs Twitter, for a while. When he got pulled in that Clippers game, people wanted to harp on his defense. He made one minor mistake on defense. That was not why he got pulled. He got pulled because on the 2 preceding offensive possessions, Pop was screaming at him to go get the ball and do something with it. And he just kind of ran around the perimeter and passed. And he passed up an open 3-1. Yeah. He had a guy blown by for an open dunk and passed out of it. And I think that's the thing is, like you said, he's afraid. And we talked about not knowing how good you are. And he'll come into that. But I think Pop is really trying to groove him to say, look, you can take over these games. You can be our guy. You just got to believe you can do it. Because he, like you said, he has every necessary skill to do that. And if he does that, maybe we don't need a lottery pick.
Yeah, he can score, like you said, from the 3 levels, right? At the rim, mid range, and from the 3 ball. And what's so crazy is that the sample size that we've seen, we still haven't even seen him really work that mid-range game because those shots are selected for LaMarcus and DeMar. And then DeJounte next, you know what I mean? So it's he doesn't get those looks unless they come naturally out of transition or things like that. But he has those tools, man, and we've seen him do it all in the G League. So it's he has the tools to be a 20-point plus scorer a game. Because he can do that. I mean, he can get to the rim a few times a game, a couple threes, a couple mid-rangers, a couple free throws, and he's at 17 points every single night. You know what I mean? So he can do that probably, but it's going to take time. It takes a development. He wasn't ready to do that this year. I think for us to expect that of him was maybe a little bit, too much. But I mean, to expect him minutes, I don't think was too much to ask. But to expect him to develop so fast, we might have to be a little patient with him, and it's just going to depend on when the opportunity comes. And I think he's always that guy that talks like you said, Destin. He talks like he studied with yoga like 3 years ago for about Yoda from Star Wars for a few years. He's like super zen. You know what I mean? He's not worried. He's patient. He trusts the process, and I think that it's just about being ready for the opportunity when he gets there. But we're gonna wrap it up right here. So let's go. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Let's start off with San Antonio Spurs talk. Harrison, why don't you tell everyone else what you got going on?
Yeah, real quick before I sign off, Rob, I was going to say we're talking about Lonnie at the end of this. Our next mailbag is going to be on Lonnie, so be on the lookout on every single one of our accounts to submit us questions. Ask for feedback, what we think of Lonnie and his potential and all that. But you can submit your questions to us on Facebook.com/San Antonio Spurs Talk. On Instagram, we are at SA Spurs Talk. On Twitter, same thing, but add a 21 at the end, and you got it.
Tyler, you're next, bud.
I mean, man, we got some fun stuff in the pot brewing for all y'all. I know me and Harrison have been working on a little something that we started teasing this past week with our new show that we won't go into too much detail about. We want to tease it as we come along, but we got some fun stuff planned for y'all, and I bet everybody else here has a little something planned for y'all too. So good time to jump on the train now.
Absolutely. Maddie, why don't you tell everybody what's going on at Spurs Fan Blog?
Yeah, we got our Lonnie. We're going to actually come out with a Lonnie Mailbag blog post. Harrison, Tyler, and I. We're going to go a little more in depth in the stuff we won't get in touch with here, but we're actually going to be starting a theme. We're still kind of working out the details of it, but we're going to be writing our articles on our favorite Spurs team from the 2000s, or the forgotten Spurs team that should have won a championship. So if you guys have any input on there on teams that you want us to write about, we're at spursfanblog.com, on Instagram at spursfanblog. Like everyone said before, submit any questions you have, or just if you have any thoughts or feedback or advice, comments, whatever. We're always open to suggestions. Whatever you guys got, we always appreciate your time and we appreciate your support. So, but spursfanblog.com, at spursfanblog on Instagram.
Destin, talk to Spurs Nation, man.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Spurs Dynasty, Spurs Wave, or you can find me on YouTube, Clan the Spurs Fan. And if you want to be in the parody music video that I'm doing, there, yeah, you need to just hit me up. Just send me a message, hit me up, and I'm gonna put you in there.
Awesome.
You're promoting your rap career. You're trying to get your rap career started up on this.
Yeah, you can follow me on SoundCloud, man. I got.
Your rap last year's Spurs team. I listened to it, dude. Like, you got some flow. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I appreciate it. You talking about?
Destin, somebody actually sent me that on our Facebook page, and they were like, "Hey, can y'all post this on here?" And I was like, "I don't want to post it without his permission." But it was
which one was it?
Man, I don't know. Like I said, it was like a year
some
ago.
Fan. I think it was some fan.
Yeah, they just DM'd us. They were like, "Yo, check this out."
That's awesome.
All right, guys. Well, I'm Rob at bookingspurs.com. I got a new film room coming out soon. Been going through the archives to show you guys what the pros and what the cons are of DeJounte Murray and Derek White when they're on the floor together. So maybe make a little bit more sense for y'all on why we saw it so late, didn't see so much of it in the future and whatnot. But thank you guys for tuning in. This is Order on the Court. We have, like everyone kind of said, we have so many things in store for you guys. Live streams, content, all these special Spurs content coming your way. So just stay tuned for that. We're looking on launching officially somewhere around pre-draft. Whenever the NBA does announce when that's going to happen, we'll have a lot of special things coming your way. That's when you can go to our site. It is up now, but you can go to OOCspurs.com. Thanks for tuning in. Go Spurs, go. Court is adjourned.